All right, hey team. Let me see if I'm up and at 'em, and we'll do some artwork this morning for the Eberron adventure that we're creating. So clicking in here, just checking to see if the signal is live. Sounds live to me. Cool. Let's drop that volume down to nothing. Copy paste to get the images up and running here. I'm going to do some social media posting real quick. I'll go through my intro real fast, and then we'll dive into getting work done. So, hey folks, my name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing games. I illustrate them. I publish online, and like I said, we're creating an Eberron adventure for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. It's going to be publishing on the DMsGuild. It's for characters level 7 to 8, 4 to 5 characters. It takes place in the Carnwood of Carnath on the continent of Corvair, and my mouse is being screwy again. Click, click. It's going to take me a moment here to get through this. I didn't do my social media setup like I normally do, so it's taking me a little bit longer to process that stuff. Click, click. To tell you about me real quick, I've been a DM since 1987. I've been a freelance illustrator since 1999. I've been an Eberron enthusiast since 2005, and I've been creating supplements and content for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition on the DMsGuild since 2017, but I have yet to publish my own adventure. They are beasts. Most supplements that you create, like character options or like new subsystems that the DM and players can use in different types of campaigns, or like most of these things are just basically alphabetically listing concepts, and then inside of each concept or theme, more alphabetical listing of what those ideas are. And then drop in some illustrations, and you're done. So it's pretty straightforward. But adventures have a combination of both a narrative element of what's actually happening inside of the adventure, and there's some sort of logical, either spatial or temporal structure to what happens throughout the course of the adventure that dictates where you place it inside of the actual document that you're creating. Generally, like the things that you're going to run into first is at the front end of the book. Things that you're going to run into last are at the back end of the book. And then there's connecting the different areas that might not be either physically naturally following each other, or temporally in the adventure not naturally following each other, that you need to be able to cross-connect and be able to to cross-reference each other within the document, in case depending on how the characters decide to navigate the space that you're creating. And then there's actually depicting the space that's being created that the characters are going to navigate inside of, and all the game mechanics that go along with what activities the characters perform while they're in that space. So all these things combined, it's a lot more of it's a lot more intense creation of document than just a list of like new spell options or a list of feats or something. So having pontificated that enough, I've got my social media boosting done. If you're on the X Twitter platform, I'm still there at Phil Kearney. You're welcome to tag along if you want to see different different illustrations, works in progress, coupons, invitations to participate in playtesting, etc. So at Phil Kearney, and then here in YouTube at Phil Kearney. Hey, great, new subscribers. Thanks a lot, guys. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications when we are live in the future. And let's see, burp, burp, burp. Where's my... I feel like the ratio of stuff has changed on YouTube recently. Anyway, here's 349 episodes. Here's the full list. Here's a stack of books that we've created. Here is my Discord community link if you are interested in participating in playtesting that we are hopefully going to be having this month. Check all that stuff out if you want. And here's the book cover that we created back around episode 40, and we did the lettering around episode 240, I think. And so right now we are working on the interior pages. So we had been working on this a little bit earlier. I think I want to work on the Silver Flame just a bit more. I think there's a bit more to this illustration that I want to do here. So let's take this and drag it down here. And that's where that is. That's where that is. Yeah, I need to do bring in these highlights a little bit. So let's do that next. One, two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like that. Cool. Let's see if I can just smudge this. Ooh, that's way too high of an intensity. I want to bring that down to like 40%. There. Let's thicken that up here at the base. So this weekend we're going to have the Saturdays are really productive days for me getting stuff done on this project. I have a good block of a 4 or 5 hour stretch of time. I get to participate as a player in a Curse of Strahd campaign every other week, and that's going to be this weekend. So my Curse of Strahd weekends, I get about 4 hours of production in for this book in the afternoon, and on the Saturdays, like next weekend when I'm not playing Curse of Strahd, I'll have a good 8 hour block of time for me to get work done on this. And so we should be moving into Act 2 of the layout production after this weekend. It's taking a little bit longer to get the layouts done, but they're also a lot more complicated than I initially figured. So that's okay. But we're having to do some rewrites to make sure that the text fits inside of the space. So that is coming along really nicely. So the adventure has 3 parts, and it looks like the document is going to be about 106 of these 17 by 10 pages that fit the 16 by 9 aspect ratio that I'm anticipating people are going to be using. What is going on with you, Mon Petite Shoe? God bless it, Kearney. Like, why can't I change that? Silly rabbit. But yeah, I'm really happy with it. It's coming along nicely. I should have more pages to share after this weekend for us to continue working on. We'll be adding in the village, the individual buildings of the village map into these pages next week, and then hopefully moving into doing all the tokens and maps, getting those all built out and dropped into the document over the next 2 weeks or so, and being able to continue forward from there. It's not looking too bad. It's also not looking too flame-like. So let's keep up the effect here. That feels pretty good. There. Nice. So we stream Monday through Friday in the mornings to build Eberron art like this. We have a design stream that we run on Monday and Thursday nights, like we had last night, as well as Tuesday and Friday lunchtime, which we'll be doing today as well. I'm anticipating like around 1:30 p.m. PST, Pacific time, like here in Seattle, which is around 4:30 on the East Coast. I think that's, or 3:30 in Central Time. That's why I think I'm going to be doing about an hour lunch to continue working on class design, the color mana spell point variant rule system using Magic the Gathering color magic instead of Vancian magic, the 8 schools and spell slots to help better create the feel of Magic the Gathering for Magic the Gathering campaign settings, or like I use color mana in my Eberron games because I love Eberron, but I also love the color magic system for Magic the Gathering. It's such a visual, it's like a literal visual cue for what kind of magic you're encountering. Wizards throwing white magic at you, okay. Wizards throwing black magic at you and all the spells that go along with that, cool. You can like literally see it happening. So it's a nice, it's a more narratively in-depth system than the 8 schools of magic are, and it that's some of the first work that I created on the DMs Guild was inspired by the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica back in 2017, which is what motivated me to develop the color mana system. So you guys are welcome to check that out. I've been streaming that content for well over a year at this point. So there's a number of playlists involve like Spellpoint Sorcerer, Spellpoint Artificer, rebuilding the monk as a half caster, the Pacts and Patrons of Ravnica. So we'll be we're continuing to work on the 2024 Spellpoint Warlocks because they gave Warlocks a bunch of well, at least the Archfey got a ton of like free magic castings of Misty Step that we had to take into account. When you only get 4 spell slots per long rest, assuming that you want to keep spell slots that way. A good solution is to grant free castings of magic, but that can limit your palette, what you can actually do. Like if all you can do is either give them a spell slot or not, that's a very, well, 5th edition is all about binary choices, isn't it? Like yes or no's, basically. So either getting or not getting free castings of the spell sustains that binary scope and feel. So I respect that. But spell points are so much more versatile, and you can just do so much more with them beyond just yes, no. There's yes, no, how many, how long. If you're using a hard magic system, what color of mana are you using? That becomes an option. So you've got all these different levers that you can pull when you're using a mana system of how a class uses that mana, and you can help define the flavor of a class further by changing. Like the sorcerer uses mana in different ways than the wizard does, by incorporating meta magic into the mana system, like as like actual spell points instead of being separated between sorcery points and spell slots. You can integrate the mechanic, like you can make meta magic as though it were another type of spell. Just like with paladins, for example, you can convert all of the smite spells into just mana effects that a paladin can spend on use when making an attack, so that you don't have. And since it becomes hard coded to the paladin as a class, you don't have to worry about does this break with like higher level spell casting. Like if I have a 9th level spell slot and I want to use a smite spell, how does that work? It doesn't matter, because you can't use a 9th level spell to quote unquote cast smite spell, because we replaced those with mana effects for the paladin. So very simplified. Like it's both more simple, but it adds more design choices. So in that sense, it's more complex, but it's not more complicated. So complex does not mean complicated. Well, I mean, in the way that I'm using it doesn't. Maybe literally it's maybe complicated is an adjective form of the word complex, but that's not the point I'm making. So, and then I have a brunch stream on Saturday, and so the playtesting that I want to do with the martial powers and the color mana system is I want to run a Beck-Me style of experience points in the original Dungeons and Dragons. And if you go to my Discord, you'll see a post to a game that I participated in yesterday with Wally DM. Jake Wisdom Check, Dungeons and Dramons, I think. I don't know the channel of all the guys that were playing, but I'm learning them. But go check that out. Yeah, it's on my Discord, so you can see a link to the to Wally's game that he ran us in through Beck-Me. But Beck-Me old school. The way that you gained experience points was you would extract gold from a dungeon, and you either kept the gold to buy better equipment, or you frivolously spent the gold partying in town, and that was the downtime mechanic to spend gold gaining experience points. Like the process of partying and swallowing your trauma of being in the dungeon. That process resulted in however much gold you threw away in coping with the traumas that you faced in the dungeon, then gets converted into experience points at a 1-to-1 ratio. And the experience point system changed from Beck-Me 1st, 2nd edition into a unified experience point tree in 3rd, 4th, and 5th edition, and they have never gone back. So it used to be the more powerful your character was, the slower they gained levels, and it was up to the team to decide how much wealth they kept and how much of it they threw away to gain levels. Like a wizard took more experience points to gain a level than a rogue did, like almost twice as much. And so, but the rogue didn't necessarily gain a lot of power each level, because they're not getting spells, they're just getting better chances of like hiding and stuff like that. So you can argue that it's a lower level rogue is fine if you load them up with a bunch of magic gear. So their portion of the treasure, instead of gaining levels, they could choose instead to just invest it in more magical equipment that would allow them to pace their power faster than the actual levels that they gained would. So it's a really interesting philosophy, and I enjoyed it. Like I said, I've been a DM since 1987, so I'm intimately familiar with, although it's been decades playing WotC's versions of Wizards of the Coast. I've done the XP. I've done the original Beck-Me gold equals XP. I've done the 3rd, 4th, and 5th edition WotC version of challenges. Overcoming challenges is what grants you adventure, and that limits. The problem with that is that it allows you to control the amount of treasure that you give the team, because they're not going to throw it away. They have no use for it other than creating more resources and gear and magic items for the characters. So you have more control over the treasure that they gain, because they can't do anything with the treasure other than use it as treasure, right? So you have more control over that, separate from the experience. But what you lose is that if you attack them with too many monsters, they gain levels by surviving the experience. So that then throttled how many monsters the DM could throw at a character before they gained power, regardless of the scale, scope, and narrative of the adventure. Like if you're fighting an army of ogres and you kill 200 ogres and each ogre is worth 100 experience points, you just got 20,000 experience points for your team. But maybe that ogre that ogre army was just one challenge in the larger scope of an adventure that you were conducting. But now your characters have already gained a level after the first battle, and none of the rest of the adventure is scaling to match the challenge, the power that the characters gained as a result of that challenge. So now you're having to ratchet up the encounters that they're going to face throughout the rest of the adventure, which means they're going to gain experience points quicker. So now what might have been intended as like an adventure for 5th level characters is now taking them into 7th level, just because of the nature of I'm fighting monsters that grant me experience. And if you don't give me experience for these monsters, I'm not gaining any experience at all. So there's flaws there. And so I gravitated to the milestone system, which is where 5th edition adventures have pretty much landed, in that they aren't attempting to pace combat, traps, and puzzles with the characters' levels anymore. A lot of the adventures in 5th edition have a single combat, maybe 2 per level. And it's not specifically stated, but kind of inferred that if you want to do XP by the number, you have to add in a lot more encounters. But the published adventures don't necessarily grant you the bandwidth or like insertion points to have these other encounters. Like, where would they naturally occur? Don't know. So that's kind of on you to figure that out, and they don't provide guidance for it. They use the milestone system, where you complete these tasks and you hit these narrative points inside the adventure, and once you pass through that experience, whether it was a challenge or not, you gain a level that day. And that's how Wizards has paced it out. The way that I used milestone experience was that I could attack you with as many monsters and throw as many challenges and traps and puzzles at you as I want, and you don't gain any levels from that. You might not even gain any treasure from that. It's just things that you're enduring. And once you once you achieve the goal that all of these trials and tribulations were preventing you from achieving, once you do, achieving that objective is what gives you your goal. So a 20-level campaign could have 20 or more objectives, depending on whether you give, like I would give, we would set a major goal, and we'd have a stack of goals that we wanted to achieve, and as we achieved them, we gained levels. So I could pace a campaign from level 1 to 20 this way by having different goals that the team would achieve from level 1 to 20. Here's the 5 goals that you need to achieve to beat the boss. That's suppressing your town. That takes you to 5th level. Let's expand the scope of the campaign. You've now made that boss's overlord angry, so in the next 5 levels, you're going to defeat that criminal organization that boss was associated with. And once you do, like there'll be like 5 plot points along the way. And at the end of it, once you've defeated the enemy organization, it reveals that they were a cult worshiping a demon. So now your next set of goals from like level 10 to 15 is to defeat that cult and banish that that demon from having power in your realm. And then like maybe from level 16 to 20, after defeating after cutting off the power of that demon's cult here in the world, you could like go to hell directly and kill it where it lives. And that becomes your 16 to 20 level objective. And once you've killed that god in its own realm, you're now level 20 characters, and you can wield, like you can harvest the power that this demon god had, and you can alter the world and close off the campaign with having made the changes that you wanted to the world, and then we can start a new campaign over using those changes. So that's a milestone-driven campaign where you have these different plot beats that you want to hit, and when they hit them, they gain a level and gain power to take on the new level of challenge with this new plot point. And you could have any number of anywhere from 0 combat and challenges to unlimited number of combats, however many it takes you to achieve your goal. And that's I enjoyed that for many years. I also recently played with timed levels, like you gain X amount of experience points per hour of play. Basically 10% of the experience that you needed per hour of play. After 10 hours of play, your character automatically gained a level. So after around 200 hours of play, you would automatically go from level 1 to 20. It was just a matter of and you'd have objectives to achieve that your team defined for themselves, but the experience points that they gained there was no connection between achieving the goals or the challenges you faced to achieve them, or the rewards that you extracted, but simply time invested gained you levels. So you could create side quests, tangents, and overseeing like downtime activity and stuff in game, and that would still gain you levels. And so the team was able to manipulate that mechanic to like hold off on facing a challenge until they had spent more time in the game to gain some levels to make that particular challenge less difficult to achieve and help ensure their survival. And although this didn't eliminate character deaths, it certainly it allowed the team to approach challenges literally in their own time. And as long as they were conducting activity in the campaign, I didn't particularly care. So I thought that was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed that. But now that I've gone through all these different systems, what I really like is removing experience from challenges throughout all these different means. Not granting experience for killing monsters, I think, is the most productive for a game. And so now that I've come to that conclusion, I want to wrap back around to the beginning of my experiences in first edition and see, given that these are the lessons that I've learned in running games in WotC style in 3rd, 4th, and 5th edition, I want to take it back to BECME. And we'll keep the experience points gained by level the same, because with the power systems that we've been creating, we're escalating the amount of power that all the characters have. So there is no real martial divide now in using the mechanics that we've been developing here on stream. The martial caster divide disappears greatly. So spellcasters are still more versatile in the things that they can do, and they have more AoE effects than what martials do. But the amount of things that we've expanded that martials are capable of doing both in and out of combat puts them on far more equal footing with full casters than before. So I don't feel a need to change the experience points that different types of characters get based on their abilities, because they all now have a very robust range of abilities that they can use. Something just went wrong. Excuse me. Yeah, something just hit my heart really weird. This is almost done. There, I like that. I think that feels good. I want to bring this in here a tick. Carve out some empty space. I like that. That feels really nice. Cool. And we can conceal that and drop that away into the references. So this is where I'm seeing the frame sitting, and looking at the book cover. This is the inspiration that we're using, and ultimately we're going to be using this this coloration for this, I believe. Let's just grab a snip here. Like that. Copy. Filigree. I see. So this is when we get to start experimenting with how the frame interacts with the illustrations that we have. Left, middle, right, nope, right, and then we have the background. Merge that down. I'm contemplating my next move. Let's duplicate this group. I'm going to merge this group down. I'm going to apply the layer mask. So now it's just a single layer. I think I want to mess around with it a little bit. I like having a fade, like this texture background. I don't like just having illustrations sit on a white page. It just doesn't, it feels incomplete. So I'll work this fade in to complement what we've got going on here. So let's duplicate that group. Merge it. I can push this up. create a clean cut here. Like that. Let's take this and we'll blend this in a little bit more. I want to have that blend into this angle here like that, which is why I'm working on this. There, that feels good. And now we can expand this out. We can push this in here a little bit more. Let's get this fade in here. Obviously, there's work that I'm doing that you don't get to see because I do work on this off screen as well. I'm trying to limit the scope of illustrations that I'm doing right now for you guys to have some sort of a little bit of continuity moving from point to point, because I can't, the amount of hours that it takes for me to create this thing, I can't do literally every hour of production of this on screen for you guys to watch. Maybe if I do a Kickstarter in the future and I can have stretch goals be more and more time invested on screen developing each individual component. I don't know if that's incentivizing or not. Just work this into the canvas. So there's also the issue of, like, do I want to have like a color along underneath the frame, and then have like a black frame, and then have this like marble stuff overlapping that blackness. Might not be a bad idea. I haven't done a heavy dark frame in a book yet. It's always very, even if I have filigree along the edge, it's never solid. It's always like partial little pieces of little vignettes that bleed into the page or fade into the page color, as opposed to being a hard border that has to be respected, as it were. And I'm wondering if this project should have that hard edge. I don't intend these things to be printed. The way I build them is for digital use, assuming that you're going to use a tablet. Hence the 16:9 aspect ratio that I have on it, so that it fits on it. It's like if you're DMing in either in the flesh or on the side, you can have a tablet sitting that provides you all the page information behind your DM screen, whether that screen is like a literal screen when you're on virtual tabletop and camming with people during your game, or if you're actually at a physical table and you have a barricade with a tablet behind it. In either case, I want you to be able to scroll on the tablet to go from page to page, or use the navigation buttons that we're using down here to be able to move from one section of the document to the next. That's the medium that I want to replicate. And so then it's I think it becomes an issue of, how do I want to cap off these borders? And I'm still working on that. Still figuring that out, but I'm not opposed to having like a black frame. That's not a horrible idea. So let's mess around with that for a minute. Like, how will this feel doing this? There. Free transform. Free transform. 90 degrees. Thank you. Oh, that's a little choppy. Wait, no, wait, no. Better. So if we block that in, start doing stuff like this to fill in. Something like this. Huh. Interesting. Does that mean... Do I want a heart? Do I like that? Because I can build circuitry and stuff that links each of these, like table of contents, running the adventure, deputized part 1, region A and B in part 1, part 2, regions A, B, C, and D. Part 3 has regions A. Part 3 doesn't have any separate regions, and then Appendix 1, Appendix 2, Appendix 3. So these are through lines that I could then have our, like we have, like I can do this sort of circling structure here around each of the nodes that we have down here, right? I can do this similar framing around it. And then white here, so we can blend in white down here and then fade it out into the darker bits up here. So if I merge that down and then say put a layering mask over it like that, and did like a fade from black into white, maybe that would be interesting. I don't not like that. Huh. (16:9) ratio. I'm using a 17:10 document page, so 160 divided by 17 means it should be 9.5 inches tall. And we have a 1/2 inch gap here at the bottom, so technically this bottom gets trimmed off. Do I want to... did, would I want to fade the circuitry out like that? I kind of like that. I did this with the Spelljammer book. Actually, I did a gradient fade like this along the edge, and it faded out about here on a 8.5 by 11 page. The more I work in the 16 by 9 aspect ratio, the more I kind of want to keep it for all my books. Bold move. Don't like how the margin lines up okay here, but when I scan back, it breaks. Maybe I want to... That feels better. Doesn't look better though. Blech. Do I like that? I kinda do. Apply. Thank you. Oh god, it's 8 o'clock. All right, hey, it's time for me to go apparently. I missed my timer, so I'm going to be back at 1:30. It's 8 o'clock now, so 5.5 hours from now I'm going to be back on. We're going to continue working on the color mana spell point variant rules for Warlocks. So stick around for that. I do have time real quick just to erase this away here. And let's duplicate this layer, free transform, flip horizontal. So that's the idea. Merge down. This gives me a gradient to curve into. I like that. So I can do this background. This environment now I can fade in using the frame of it, so that becomes consistent. Not liking this though, so I'm fretting on this page because this is the first page that we're really building out as a complete piece. So once we do that, we're going to have a better idea of how we want to do stuff in general. We'll be able to continue that language throughout the document and potentially come back and adjust this as we find new ideas. But it takes a little while to get the momentum going. Once we do, we'll kind of start rocking through it. You can check out the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration playlist that I have on my channel to see how that curves out over time. But that is it for now. I will be back in 5.5 hours to continue with Point Warlocks. So I will catch you guys then, and see you soon. Cheers.